How is it going, everybody? I'm recording this on 18th of July 2024, 8:14 p.m. East Africa time. My name is Cliff, and welcome. So, I went into an article yesterday from Preston Stewart in Between the Lines. It's a paid Substack articles which they sent for free as a way to, welcome you to their subscription platform. And I found something interesting that I should talk about. Considering I'm from Kenya, I'm not from the United States or the UK or Europe. I'm from Kenya, East Africa. So they came up with this article that was talking about Houthi collaboration with Al Shabaab and the specter of Iran's influence. Now, for an African like me, people normal day Kenyan, when you talk about Houthis, that is not really something we care about a lot. We won't bat an eye if you say Houthis have done something. They will just say that is not our problem. That's more like Middle Eastern problem. But when you mention Al Shabaab, we have had a lot of history with them. We had the Westgate terror attack here in Kenya. We had the Garissa University attack. We had Dasit D2 attack. And there are multiple IED attacks along the border of Kenya and Somalia. Boni Forest is actually one of the most dangerous places here in Kenya, considering deaths from acts of violence, like somebody getting shot here in Kenya, is not a very common thing. Like when someone gets shot here in Kenya, everybody will know it's a very rare occurrence. So Al-Shabaab actually made these people in the northeastern parts of the country. These people, it's a common occurrence to them, someone getting shot, because of, thanks to Al-Shabaab having the people patrolling that area, like more like causing trouble around that area. They smuggle across the border into Kenya, and then they set up IEDs on roads. They attack villages sometimes. They operate within the forest. Boni Forest is actually a huge forest that is shared by both Kenya and Somalia. So they operate inside the forest. So normal citizens actually avoid that place because it's kind of a dangerous place to be. So the article goes to say, evidence suggests that the Yemen-based Houthis are collaborating with Somalia's Al-Shabaab. Iran's regional influence could expand greatly as a result, which is not wrong because Al-Shabaab, they run most parts of Somalia. Like apart from Mogadishu, let's say the government of Somalia has managed to put Mogadishu under control. The rural areas of Somalia, and by the way, that is to say a lot. If you look at the rural Somalia, it's actually the largest. It's large and it's largely uncontrolled. So what do you have? You have Al-Shabaab militias running across that region that the government does not have reach. Because remember, the Amisom coalition, they left the country. They left the country a long time ago, and like 5 years ago. And remember, Mogadishu is just at the coast. Just at the coast of Somalia. It's near the Indian Ocean. It just borders the Indian Ocean. So you have the rest of Somalia all the way from Mogadishu at the coast, all the way to the border with Kenya, all the way to the north, to the Horn of Africa, to the Puntland. It's a disputed boundary there. There's a disputed boundary that exists between Somalia and Puntland. They run all that area. Somaliland is a little bit secure because they can't have a stable government, which a lot of controversy out of that place. They are not really recognized internationally by most countries. I think it's worth mentioning that. But Somaliland is different from Somalia. They declared independence from Somalia, and actually there was a war, and there was an entire thing that led to the collapse of Somalia. But Somaliland is kind of safe, but they don't need that. Somaliland being a strong country, being a safer country, they don't have the navy or the military that can carry out an intervention to stop the Yemen Houthis from crossing the Gulf of Aden down into Somalia. They just smuggle people across. There's nobody to put an end to that. And sometimes we have Kenyan Navy patrolling the area. We have the Chinese Navy occasionally when they're protecting their interests along the Indian Ocean waters. Sometimes they patrol through there, but they're not really involved in counterterrorism activities. We have the US Navy and the British Navy, the French Navy. Sometimes they do come across guys being smuggled across from Yemen down to Somalia, and sometimes they put an end to it, but it's a very rare occurrence. And these people, sometimes they develop mechanisms to avoid these big ships because they know they won't survive. But it's not uncommon for Yemeni fighters Yemen is highly, as an area of interest right now in the international community. Yemen is under scrutiny. People will watch what is happening in Yemen. So they send their new recruits, their new fighters, they send them down to Somalia. They train there. And then they send them back up into Yemen. Now they train in the rural Somali areas, and they get smuggled by boats back up into Yemen. So the article goes ahead and say, recent evidence suggests that increased cooperation between Houthis and shabaab that could increase the scope of ongoing conflict in the Red Sea. Something they noted in January 29th article. They talked about this, increased Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. As of now, they have had more attacks than they did in December of 2023, while in the height of the Israeli-Gaza conflict. Now they have increased the capacity and the magnitude of the attacks on their ships coming through the Red Sea. And last month, the US intelligence agencies announced they were investigating a possible arms transfer agreement between the two groups, calling recent discussion between them. With the possibility of Iranian involvement looming large over the region, this relationship signals Tehran's expanded threat to global security. Now that is not a good news for countries like Kenya, because remember, the kind of weapons that the Houthis currently yield in their arsenal is not a very good news. Yes, we can say they are not compared to a global superpower like the United States. Just the United States Navy can 1v1 the Houthis all this time from last year December up to now. But think about a country like Somaliland or Ethiopia or Kenya. Yes, Kenya's military is well equipped. There is no dispute there. They are well equipped. They have modern day guns. They use Sky FNG variants, which are really good, nice assault rifles. They are well equipped. But when it comes to considering what Iran gives to their proxies, for example, Shahed suicide drones, is it much a man with a rifle can do when faced with a suicide drone? It can attack a whole city, and without proper air defense capabilities, which, by the way, most countries in Africa do not possess. Kenya, no, certainly do not. Maybe they could scramble the jets. We have we field Northrop 5Es from the 70s. Maybe they stand a chance, but not very good chance. You need active anti-air defense system in order to stop such an attack. And prevent an attack of a devastating scale. So it goes saying, on June 15th, Houthi militants had targeted 2 vessels in the Red Sea. That month, Houthi attacks on commercial vessels increased to levels not seen since December 2023. Yeah, we talked about that. According to the US Navy-led Joint Maritime Information Center, this attack have disrupted shipping between over 65 countries and caused at least 29 major energy and shipping firms to reroute, often around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to their journeys that will collectively cost billions of dollars. Well, affecting the world economy, which was particularly their goal. I don't know if really what their goal was to, people avoiding them, but they wanted to hit more ships to disrupt global shipping routes. And they kind of are not discriminating, because they even hit Iranian ships. Sometimes they're not aware, but they hit Iranian bound ships or ships from Iran to European countries, because remember, again, they are just proxies. So sometimes Iran will be dealing with a European country and the Houthis will hit that ship unknowingly. They hit a Russian ship who was carrying fertilizers. It happens. So some of these countries, just instead of hiring security or waiting for the government intervention to provide security, they just reroute it. They go through Cape of Good Hope. It's a longer distance, but safer. It costs them a lot of money, yes, but the ships get there safe. Across the Gulf of Aden in Somalia, the Al-Shabaab militant group continues to grow in strength, despite decades of multinational efforts to counter its influence. Yeah, that is also something interesting to talk about. See, there was, in the 90s, there was the United States, United States, Pakistan, UN-led coalition. that was looking after the UN personnel in Somalia providing aid. Then Black Hawk Down happened and the United States had to retreat. Then in came AMISON. Kenya, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, military, Rwanda, they all went in. They tried to stop Al-Shabaab. They failed. Then we had Westgate attack, and Kenya had to again go in, hunt down Al-Shabaab, try to help the Somalian government to step up. It didn't do much. Okay, it toned down the level of attacks, the scale of attacks, and also it was a wake-up call to Kenya, because prior to 2013, Al-Shabaab wasn't a real threat for Kenyans. We didn't really care. Some of us didn't even know they existed until when they step up these attacks, which it kind of makes me think maybe even then they were under the Iranian sphere of influence, because Kenya for the longest time has been an ally of the United States and the UK, and Iran and the United States, they are not big friends. So I'd like to think maybe these attacks, when they were getting more frequent. There was Westgate attack, there were ID attacks along the border, around Garissa, and then there was the Garissa University attack, which actually was devastating to turn down Westgate, but that was more of a massacre, because they're in Garissa, they're in the border, they're far away. Even a counter-terrorism unit couldn't get there on time because of how far they were, which, by the way, helped the government improve on certain sectors, but it was really a sad moment for the country. So even after they went in there, and if you know something about war, is prolonging war is political suicide. So eventually governments gave up and they decided, well, we'll leave this to Somalia, because they thought Al-Shabaab had gone down, because their scale of attacks had reduced. They were no longer sending videos out beheading people. Those were not happening anymore. So they thought, well, we could just leave it be, and they retreated. Kenyan army left Somalia, Ugandan army left Somalia, Tanzanian army left Somalia. They left, and now they say today Al-Shabaab is Al-Qaeda's largest and wealthiest affiliate group. Also, yeah, that is true, because amid the global war on terror, amid the global war on terror, it was a common knowledge that Al-Qaeda will send their fighters through Yemen down to Somalia to train, and then send them back up through the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, into Yemen, and we go up into Iraq to fight US-led coalition forces. Yeah, that was a real thing that was happening. So Al-Shabaab is actually an affiliate of Al-Qaeda. It was formed as a wing, as a African wing of Al-Qaeda, even long before we had these guys in Nigeria, Boko Haram. Long before Boko Haram came, there was Al-Shabaab was formed as a wing. Because remember, in the 90s, Osama was in Sudan. Osama was hiding in Sudan back in the 90s, when we had the embassy attack in the US embassy attack here in Nairobi. Osama was hiding in Sudan. So it's not far-fetched to think when he was there, he helped found the Al-Shabaab military group in Somalia, because Sudan at the time, it was generally under control, under military control, because so it was hard to form a militia there. Same with Ethiopia. But when you come to Somalia was already collapsing in the 90s. So I think that is when Osama helped found Al-Shabaab as a military, as an African wing down there. If we need to train people, we will come down here. So just as a way to keep them ready. So they are the wealthiest affiliate group to Al-Qaeda. Somalia's most fertile agricultural land in a country perpetually prone to food shortages. In a 2022 Senate hearing, former United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, which they kind of oversaw the AMISON operations in Somalia. They actually, AFRICOM, they even have their air bases in Malindi to help in recon and evidence gathering. General Stephen Townsend called Al-Shabaab the greatest threat to US persons and interests in the Horn of Africa. Yeah, which they're not wrong. As of last month, the group has reversed all of its gain made by the US and African Union backed Somali National Army over the past 2 years in just 6 months, with over 12,000 fighters and as much as 150 million in annual revenue. The group will likely continue to make gains in the ongoing withdrawal of African Union Transition Mission in Somalia. Yeah, that was ATMIS. ATMIS was, that was AMIS, part of AMISON, and then they all retreated because, well, they wanted to leave the country in the hand of Somalian military, but now they have reversed. They just counter. They just countered every single gain Somalian government had, and now they're taking over, which plans to fully exit Somalia by December 31, when a much smaller force will replace it, which is the Somalian government again. Iran continues to overtly support the Houthis materially, with Tehran playing a growing role in arming the group in recent years, especially in its ongoing attacks in the Red Sea. On July 15, the newly elected Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, sorry if I butcher that one, phoned a senior Houthi leader in Yemen and later praised the group on its ongoing assault on commercial shipping lanes in a public statement. Moreover, Tehran allegedly offers covert support to Al Qaeda by harboring senior leaders in the country, according to a 2021 list published by the United States Department. So that kind of goes off to Al Qaeda, which not my best topic. I will not want to go into it in this video. This is about shabaab, and also I don't want to talk about the Iranian president. That will be another video of another day, but well, you get the point. So Iran's Quds Force has previously used smuggling routes between Yemen and Somalia, exploiting oil in violation of sanctions while funneling weapons to Somalia as well as other African countries such as Kenya, Tanzania, South Sudan, Mozambique, and the Central African. So interesting there. So Iran, as we all know, has been placed sanctions by the West, and the United States, the UK. They placed sanctions on them because of the human rights violations, the nuclear arming program. They just a bunch of bad things they've been doing. So they have sanctions placed over them. So what do? They don't not sit on their oil. Iran is a country rich with oil. They use oil money to fund a lot of their activities, illegal and illegal. So they need to put it somewhere. What do? They use the Gulf of Aden. They use Somalia. And now when they want to smuggle guns and even oil, if they want to take it inland to their customers, they'll use Mombasa port. I mean, Kenya has one of the biggest shipping ports in the world. The Mombasa port in Africa, by the way, one of the biggest shipping ports in Africa, the one in Mombasa. That's why even the Chinese were, they were planning to take it over as a way to appease their debts. So it's not really well guarded, considering things like corruption. It's not really well guarded. So anything goes. Drugs, they can come through. Arms, they can come through. Oil, it can come through. Nobody will ask. Nobody will question where it comes from. Because as much as a country is sanctioned, there's nobody to enforce the sanction. Out here in Somalia, there's nobody to enforce the sanction. The oil will come through. Nobody will enforce that sanction. So it can come through the port in Kenya. It get pumped into trucks. It moves in. In fact, they might even be sold here in Kenya. Nobody will notice the difference because oil is oil to us. Not many people care about sanctions in this country. As long as it's affordable, they'll buy it. So it's not a surprise. They used a place like Somalia or Kenya or South Sudan. By the way, South Sudan, considering the fact that they are an unstable country right now, it's open season. They could easily just pay militias to let them go through. It's open season for them. Indeed, in 2016, Australian and French naval forces intercepted Iranian fishing vessels laden with weapons likely headed for Yemen and Somalia. So they even gave an image, which I'm going to put up here, about the known smuggling routes. And then, although the degree of Iranian involvement in facilitating relations between the Houthis and Al-Shabaab is unknown, there is little doubt that Tehran views its pairing as positive for its broader regional interests. Yeah? An enemy of my enemy, if they pair up, they are stronger. It's something that happens. And so it goes, estimated 450 US soldiers still stationed in Somalia, and they could be much in danger, which, by the way, I don't think that is true. See, when Somalia kind of got worse, they moved they moved, the US relocated their troops there. They relocated them from Somalia. Most of them are in Kenya. In Kenyan island areas of Malindi, mostly Malindi, and some relocated to Djibouti, because Djibouti is a relatively peaceful country, so some relocated up there, and they are still an ally. So I don't think there's much of US presence in Somalia right now, because you don't want to be a Westerner with blue eyes in Somalia, especially right now. It's really a dangerous place to be. This influx, combined with the planned ATMI's withdrawal and relative weakness of Somali security forces, could result in Al-Shabaab taking possession of vast quantities of weapons, because much of the Houthi arsenal comprises of Western weapons, many which were seized from Emirati forces during Saudi-led coalition against them. These Western weapons and weapon component in Somalia could be beneficial to the Houthis moving forward. Well, that is another conflict for another day. Additionally, the Houthis could benefit from Al-Shabaab links to other Islamist movements in Africa, potentially broadening Iranian's presence in the continent. Another important part is, there are other Islamic forces in Africa. It's not just Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram. We have, I think, what are they called? The Ansar-Eddin. There is another militant group up in Mali, which they don't talk much about them in the news. There's another one in Libya, Al-Qaeda. There's Al-Qaeda in Libya and other small militant group. Even the ISIS. The ISIS has a small faction of theirs is in Libya, and there's also a small faction of ISIS in Congo, in the Republic of Congo, which nobody talks about, but there is a small faction of ISIS in the Congo. So that's also interesting to note. And also, I think I'll have to research on this, but there is another faction down in Southern Africa, I think Zimbabwe, if I'm not wrong. But I'll have to research on it. I'll put up an image up there to confirm that. And in conclusion, an expanding partnership between Houthis and Al-Shabaab could result in even more significant threat to global shipping and maritime activity, which is not wrong, which is a very dangerous precedent for the neighboring countries, peace-loving countries, for example, like Kenya. Considering Kenya right now is distracted with the ongoing anti-corruption protests, the government has their hands full. They have to deal with this, deal with that. Although the army seems focused on the job. They are highly trained, highly disciplined. They have all the support of the US. They have the support of the UK. Maybe we're safe for now. But unless something is done in the nearby future, maybe things won't stay the same forever, But right, that is it for now. Thank you for watching and listening. I've been your host, Cliff. See you in the next video. Please like and subscribe.